is suffering from an unclean spirit. And I brought him to your disciples, but they weren't able to cast out the demon from that man. So Jesus blamed them, and he told them, Jesus answered and said, he answered him and said, he answered the man, or the father of the boy or the son that has the unclean spirit. He answered him and said, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I bear with you? He's talking about his disciples who weren't able to cast out the demon because of their lack of faith. How long shall I bear with you? Bring him to me. Then they brought him to him. And when he saw him, immediately the spirit convulsed him, and he fell on the ground and wallowed, foaming at the mouth. So he asked his father, how long has this been happening to him? And he said, from childhood. And often he had thrown him both into the fire and into the water to destroy him. That's a great description of how Satan would deal with us. He wants to kill us. It's physically, but for us, it's spiritual. And what I want to talk about is starting from now. But if you can do anything, the father of that boy, he said to Jesus, but if you can do anything, I want you to track if. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. Jesus said to him, if you can believe. So the man asked Jesus, if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. The answer of Jesus is another if. If you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes. All things are possible to him who believes. Immediately the father of the child cried out of despair. He cried out and said to him, and said with tears, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. We're gonna, maybe I can, if you wanna give a title to what I'm gonna talk about, is this verse. Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief. It seems strange. How can you believe and you ask for help of the unbelief? When Jesus saw that the people came running together, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to it, deaf and dumb spirit, I command you, come out of him and enter him no more. Then the spirit cried out, convulsed him greatly, and came out of him, and he became as one dead, so that many said, he is dead. But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he rose. And he rose. What this has to do with the New Year Eve? What do we think? What should we expect that we're going to talk about on the New Year Eve? Judy, what do you think? New beginning. Yeah, what else? Yeah, resolutions. New Year resolutions. It's a Western tradition, and in the East as well. And when we talk about resolutions, we have a problem with that. We have heard, every New Year Eve we are here on that church. And the speakers, some of them are repeated speakers, and they are repeating themselves, saying the same things about new beginning, about repentance. And the problem is, We make resolutions. But the problem comes the latest, January 3rd. January 3rd, all the resolutions we've made, they evaporate. They evaporate. And we come the next year, we expect what we're going to hear about, and we know the pattern. We have seen the trend, and we know what's going to happen. We're going to be okay on January 1st. We're going to try on January 2nd, and then the failure comes, the latest ad, January 3rd, and then everything goes back to what it is. Right? Okay. What this has to do with the story? What this has to do with the story? When I thought, what should I talk about, I didn't think of resolutions. But I think about things we need to put on our prayers. And we are not going to measure, I hope, we come next year, not by saying how much improvement we've made about our resolutions we made on the near eve of 2016. We don't want to think of resolutions. We need to think of prayers. We need to pray for certain things, and that's up to everyone. Personal, very personal prayer. We're going to keep this for that year. The only resolution if we want to make is just to pray for certain things that are customized to everyone. Because I think when we think about resolutions, there is two levels. Our relationship with God and our relationship with others. If we know that the two great commandments are, you love your God from all your heart, all your power, all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So these are the big things. My relationship with God and my relationship with others. And we all know our weaknesses on these two areas. We know that there is something is distracting us in our relationship with God. If you need a way to measure, what is that? When you are praying, we feel distracted. Usually, what is the thing that takes your thoughts, takes your mind away from God and away from prayer? This is the thing that you are defeated by. This is the thing you need to pray for, to overcome. This is the thing that is exceeding its limit, whether it's clearly right or clearly wrong. Because sometimes things might be okay. It's not a sin to watch a certain kind of a game. It's not a sin to do something. It's not a sin. But because it takes all my thoughts and all my efforts and all my energy, it starts to become wrong. Even things that are not, they don't seem wrong. That's as far as my relationship with God. It might be a bad relationship. It might be a certain habit, gambling, drinking. And again, it might be something that it is not a sin, but it exceeded the limits that are acceptable. On our relationship with others, we're having forgiveness. We're having openness. Sometimes we are not open. I'm going to talk about that. But again, I want to start from this passage. When we think of our relationship with God and our relationship with others, we know, or we should know, and we should think what are weaknesses on these two areas. But again, the problem is, when we decide to change that, we cannot. So what can we do? What we need to do is to pray with belief. like what that man was asked to do. If you believe. That's why I don't want you to make promises, to make resolutions, because we failed. We failed to keep up with our resolutions and promises. So don't promise. Don't do it again. If you did it 7 years before, and it failed, don't do it again. Instead of doing that, pray for your weaknesses. And come to God like that boy who was obsessed by the unclean spirit. He was totally obsessed by the demon. And he was freed, and he rose by the power of God. Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he rose. That's the happy ending of the story. But the happy ending needed belief and prayer. If you believe, all things are possible for those who believe. And the response of the man was, I believe, but help my unbelief. I think this is the spirit we need to pray with. This prayer is not magic. And it's not a guarantee that by January 3rd, you're going to be okay. What I want you to do, keep praying for your weaknesses. And with sincere heart and a broken heart before God. If you are able to keep up with prayer for these weaknesses till January 31st, 2016, you are on the right track. Again, I cannot guarantee that you're going to be able to overcome your weaknesses. We hear on the paradise of the fathers that one of the fathers, he's called unbelief. He was fighting against anger. According to the story, he fought against anger for 11 years. Your job is not to promise God that you're gonna defeat anger. Your job is to fight against anger and pray for your weakness toward anger. And if you come next year, January 31st, 2016, and you are praying wholeheartedly for your weaknesses, then you are on the right track, regardless how far you are on overcoming sin. What we need, if there is a resolution we want to make, and again, I'm not happy with the resolutions, but if one thing we need to do is just to pray for our weaknesses. Is just to pray for our weaknesses. And every time we stand before God, we tell Him, yes, we believe that you can take us by hand and lift us up, and we can rise. We will rise by your power. By your power. It's truthful. It's a fact. It's powerful. But just you need to pray with belief. And if you feel that you are not believing enough, tell Him, I believe, and help my unbelief. It's the story of that boy is our story, is my story. But Jesus can. God, through His power, He can make us rise. So we need to think of two things. The first thing we're going to, the decision or the resolution we want to make, we're going to pray for our weakness. The other thing, what are the areas we need to work on, to think of? We need to work on our relationship with God and with others. Concerning our relationship with God, again, as I said, we need to think, what are the things that are distracting us in our relationship with God? Mostly, there is no more than two things. But each one knows what are these two things. They are different from each one, different from one another. Everyone knows, as St. Paul is saying, no one knows any person except the soul, the soul of each person. So I know myself. I know what are my weaknesses. I can easily identify what is hindering me from growing up in my relationship with God. And then, when I find these two things, I should them on my prayer. And what I need to do is just to pray for these weaknesses until until December 31st, 2016. Concerning our relationship with others, we need to think, are we open to others or not? Or I'm self-centered? I'm living on my own. I need to think if I'm not forgiving. I need to think if I see others are all not loving me. There is people who believes that there is no one that understands them. There is no one that loves them. If you think that way, I want you to know that you have something wrong. We cannot say that there is no one is loving. And if this is the case, and hypothetically, if I admitted that this is the case, you need to know that you are the one who should start with love. You should conquer by love. And you should take the initiation by love. And we cannot live on our own. I came across a nice talk. If you heard about TED Talk, who have heard about TED Talk? Yeah. TED Talk is it's a non-profit. They started, I think, 1984. And they started on technology and entertainment and design, that's TED. And then it was about maybe more specific on technology, but the idea expanded to be on anything that worth spreading. They are calling it TED Talk. It's ideas worth spreading about anything. And a creative idea. So one of the talks was about one of the professors in Harvard College. I can give you, I don't have the name. I have it now on my phone, but I can't remember the name. And if you need the link, I can tell you the link. So he's the director of a study that is lasting for 75 years. One of the very few studies that lasted that long. He is the 4th program or research director. It started 1938 till now on 720 people. They traced these people since an early age, and 60 of them are still living, and they are on the age of 80s or 90s. And they started to check who are the happiest and who are the healthiest. And what they came up with, that the happiest and the healthiest are not the people who are the most successful as far as money or career, but the people who are healthiest and happiest. That's a Harvard research, okay? It's not the Bible, it's not the Bible, it's not the church, it's not the church fathers, it's TED Talk on YouTube. You're gonna find it, okay? I hope if you are not sure, highly recommend that you check this study. So they found that the healthiest people and the happiest people are the people, not the people who are most successful on as far as money or career, but they are the people who are having relationships. Family, friends, community. Family, friends, community. That's what they came up with. That's the result of a 75 research that's still ongoing on 720 people. 60 of them are still living till today. We need that. Actually, that's what the Bible is saying, but it's proved by Harvard. Sometimes we believe in Harvard researches more than we need, than we believe in the Bible. But it's no problem. Let's start by Harvard, and then we go to the rock, our belief in God. We need to be in peace with each one. And I think it's a great thing to remember is the New Year Eve. Not to make resolutions, but to pray. And when we feel that our prayers are weak and desperate, we should remember that we can say to Him, I believe, and help my unbelief. It seems conflicting. I believe and help my unbelief. But it's our reality. We believe in Him, but we don't believe enough. That's why we are believing but unbelieving. And we need to pray with all prayers. Yes, I believe, but help my unbelief. I think if we need to make a resolutions with all my concerns on the idea, is just to pray for our weakness on two areas. My relationship with God, and I see what is affecting my relationship with God. And as again, you remember, I want you to remember, it's not more than two things. And everyone should know what are these two things that are hindering my relationship with God. And two, it's something about my relationships. What is hindering my relationships? Healthy relationships in Christ. Is it because I'm self-centered? Is it because I'm not open to others? Because I wrongly believe that there is no one is loving me or understanding me? Everyone should know his problem with others and put it in prayer. And we should remember that we need to love one another as ourselves. As ourselves. May God give us in this new year to the help and the support and the grace to be able to grow up in our relationship with God. And this would be our prayer for the whole year. Again, you shouldn't come on December 31st, 2016, checking where you are on your weaknesses. But I hope you come and you say, yes, I'm still praying for my weaknesses, regardless how much you are able to overcome your weaknesses. And by the way, if God came and asked for your soul, and He found you struggling against your weaknesses, that's fair enough. A soldier all what he should do is keep fighting the war. That's all what is needed from him, following the instruction of his leader. This is what we should do. That's all what we need to do. Keep praying and keep struggling against your weaknesses on these two levels, and glory be to God forever.